Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome in to another episode of Off Court. I'm Liv Moods, joined by BK. BK, before we get into this tough loss for the Denver Nuggets, they were on the road taking on the Clippers, a team that they have actually seen so far this season. They've seen them before, played at home against this Clippers team, also took an L to the Clippers at home, and then, of course, took an L again on the road. Before we get into that, how was your Thanksgiving? Did you have a happy Thanksgiving with the family? Did you enjoy some time away?
I did, yeah. I mean, obviously, still did shows Wednesday. Thanksgiving special Thursday. Was going to join you Friday, but our schedules didn't really mesh. But yeah, it was cool to be up in the mountains. Got pounded with snow. Got some good skiing in Tuesday. Although little kids with little legs don't fare great in the snow. And then, and my wife was a little under the weather, so that kind of slowed some things down. And then we skied again Saturday before coming back down the hill. So no, it was great though. It was nice to give my wife a year off from hosting because we were able to stay up there through a friend that had a place that just gave it to us. So that was nice. They live in Jersey and couldn't use it.
Love it.
And yeah, so we got to go to her aunt and uncle live up in the Vail Valley. So that was really cool. And then got to watch a bunch of football and saw some, crazy endings. And then as a Cowboys fan, I don't want Mike McCarthy to be the coach much longer, but it's still a better Thanksgiving when they win, especially if they beat one of their rivals. So it was all in all, it was a good Thanksgiving. How was yours?
It was okay. I'm looking rough. I'm sure there's going to be some comments about it. I have been sick seriously for like a week
Since
now.
Monday, right?
Since Monday. And my mom also got sick. And yeah, so it just went through the family and spent a lot of time resting and sleeping, but just kind of feel like a shell of myself. I feel like that's very typical though with me, where whenever I have a second to like chill, that's when all of my exhaustion kind of catches up to me all at once. So did get some good family time, obviously ate some good food, but I'm looking rough because I feel like I'm just now getting over feeling really, really horrible for a week. But we are here and we're ready to talk a little bit about this Nuggets game. And just so you guys know, we'll be talking Nuggets tonight, but Monday Night Football tomorrow night, I will be at the game doing some work for FanDuel. BK and Nate will also be there. We're going to try to find a way for us all to kind of collab, get together while we're at the game and give you guys all things Monday Night Football coverage. We've got our very own Shelby Harris coming back to the Mile High City, Jerry Jeudy making his return to the Broncos. So, or against the Broncos, but back in, Empower Field. So lots to talk about tomorrow. We'll also have an off-court episode tomorrow as well, breaking down the Nuggets a little bit more in depth. But let's get into this game for the Denver Nuggets. At one point in the first half, they were down by, I think 11 was the most that they were down by at one point, which is pretty typical for this Nuggets team so far this season to kind of trail in the first half, have a slow first half. They actually went into halftime tied and then, found a little bit of rhythm maybe in the third quarter, but that fourth quarter, man, it just felt really tough to watch. Free throws being missed left and right, as well as wide open threes being made for the Clippers. And it feels like we kind of saw this already against the Clippers earlier this season. And like I said, we faced the Clippers at home, second game into our year when we started 0-2. I say we, but the Nuggets started 0-2, the second game being against the Clippers at home. And kind of felt the same. You've got these guys that you haven't heard their names, on Twitter or out there in a while, and they're draining threes in your face. And it's like, dear God, what is going on? So kind of a tough watch. BK, what are your overall thoughts on this pretty tough loss for the Nuggets here?
I like to dive into numbers, and there's always some that'll be glaring in a win or a loss. They're about even on the rebounding front, 50-48, Clippers by 2, but just two very obvious ones. And so it's credit to the Nuggets that they were able to keep the game as close, because we know in the modern NBA, you're not going to win too many games if you don't compete from the 3-point line. And the Nuggets were just 10 of 24 from behind the arc compared to 18 of 39 for the Clippers. And the Clippers got to the line 27 times, made 22 of them. The Nuggets 10 of 19, so just shy of 50%, slightly above it. You're not going to win big games shooting 50% from the free throw line unless you're 2 of 4 because you're not shooting any and you're scoring so well in other places. But in general, it wasn't enough defensively. Falling down 11, you can chalk it up as, okay, that happens. They haven't played since Wednesday. But then they
Especially
were able
with
to get
this
back
team.
into it. They were able to get back into it and take the lead in the second quarter. So, we haven't seen them be the best second quarter team most of the year. In fact, that's been probably their worst quarter at times.
Yeah.
But
Third quarter seems to be their strong suit this year.
Yeah, but they obviously turned it on and were able to not only get back in the game, take the lead in the second, and then obviously things just didn't fall their way shooting the ball. When you're only taking 24 threes and you're allowing your opponent to take 15 more, again, talk modern NBA, but James Harden wasn't great, but he still took 15. He made 6. So he made 60% of the threes compared to the Nuggets, right? He made 6.
Yeah.
The Nuggets only made 10. And, taking and making them really matters. So I imagine that Michael Malone will be disappointed in the amount of three-pointers they not only took but made, and the lack of three-point shooting from his team. You do get Aaron Gordon back, so that's a positive to see AG back out there, even if you only play 21 minutes, comes off the bench. You didn't get a great night from Jamal. You get 18 from him, 18 from MPJ. Probably would like to see them just shoot a little more and or play better defense, one or the other. And then Christian Brown had his worst night scoring this season too. And all of those things could be the slightest little difference in why you win or why you lose. And tonight they come up short because, hey, guess what? Nikola Jokic, another triple-double.
Yeah, and you know what? I have this feeling. I don't know anything about the locker room, the culture, the kind of where the energy is with this Nuggets team right now. But one thing I can say is it would not shock me if 2 weeks from now we start getting a very frustrated version of Nikola Jokic. I think there's only so much that you can do.
I mean, if you didn't get it last year, you think the euphoria of coming off the championship was enough? And that's why he kind of let it,
Absolutely. I think that they were still kind of basking in the celebration a little bit. I mean, I even feel like I was celebrating all the way into their next regular season. Like it just kind of felt like it flowed right into the next season when they had to turn it back on. So I do think some of that, obviously in-season tournament was a little bit new still. You had the excitement kind of and the buzz around that earlier in the season, kind of gave them a little bit of a jolt. I think all teams really, and the league as a whole. So, yeah, I do think that maybe we didn't see as much of the frustration there that Nikola Jokic could have had because he was doing the same thing last season. But you have to, I mean, my God, at what point do you just, if I'm frustrated from the couch, feeling like he's doing everything, I can only imagine the frustration that he feels himself. And he is a pretty even keel, level-headed guy. So maybe he won't be frustrated. But I would have to imagine that in that week of being away with the baby, there was that feeling of, we've got a lot of talent on this roster. They'll be fine without me. And in so many ways they were. They've proved that in the second game against the Grizzlies. But against the Pelicans and against the Grizzlies in that first game, they weren't. And it just shows the value that Nikola Jokic brings to this team. But I do think there's going to start becoming some frustrations. Honestly, when I watch this Nuggets team right now, Nikola Jokic has this ability to just have chemistry and being in sync with so many different players in one quarter, in 1 minute. I mean, he just can find guys and it just seems so seamless. And to be honest with you, it feels like he's got that with everybody but Jamal right now. And I don't know if that's just, we chalk it up to we're used to seeing that 1-2 punch be so lethal and it's no longer feeling that way. But to be honest with you, it kind of feels like Russell Westbrook right now and Jokic are kind of building some of that 1-2 punch energy and that fire. But can you really bench your max contract player that you just paid in the offseason? You can. You absolutely can. And I don't think Coach Malone is above doing that, but it doesn't feel or seem realistic to pay all that money to have Jamal Murray and then to bench him. But right now, To me, there is just a massive, massive lack of urgency. That is the best way I can put it without being highly offensive. If I were to be highly offensive, I would say that it's laziness. I would say it's a lack of effort. I would say that they just don't care. And I don't want to go there because I'm not in their brains. I'm not in their heads. I'm not in the locker room. But that's how it's reading. And it just feels like a lot of non-urgent players with a lack of hustle until you get Russell Westbrook and Jokic on the floor. And then you kind of get a little bit of that spark, but there's only so much you can do when you're trailing or you're not playing perimeter defense whatsoever. So the lack of urgency to me right now feels like the most concerning problem.
Well, and going into it, the Nuggets were the 7th seed and the Clippers were the 9th seed. And I get there's a lot of basketball left, but they flip-flopped and the Nuggets dropped to 9, Clippers are 7. So they, potentially see each other in the play-in. But I think the frustration from fans and from those who cover the team is going to come across as different than Nikola Jokic, only because Nikola loves playing basketball. So if he's going to miss a game, it's for a really good reason, whether that's having a baby or a real injury. He plays through pain. He plays through soreness. He battles through stuff and continues to put up MVP numbers, historic numbers at this point. I mean, he's averaging, not only is he averaging nearly a triple-double, but close to a 30-point triple-double, and he had 28 again tonight. And I think the other side of the coin, though, I don't say that he won't be frustrated, but I think part of Nikola, just like when both AG and Jamal were out, I think he likes solving problems and solving riddles, or solving puzzles. Like, I'd love to know. And, Mike Singer's book comes out this week. You probably need to actually track him down to join us for Off Court here in the next week or two. Let somebody get the stocking stuffer in the form of Mike's book. But I'll be curious, like the people that talk about Joker, is that true, or are we just surmising that? But clearly the way he studies basketball, and you get little glimpses here and there, like Christian Brown when he told us a couple weeks ago that they'll be watching games on League Pass, because I didn't know how Joker spent his time. I didn't think he was only watching Minions, but I didn't know what he's watching. There's only so much horse racing you can watch. We don't know, is he a Netflix guy? Is he a Hulu guy? What's he watching? Is he watching stuff that's just in Serbian or in other languages that aren't English? But I'll be curious to see if in the book it talks about his brain or the way he sees things, because it does feel like, as frustrating as it may seem on the outside, that, are they wasting a year, or are they, as they're trying to figure it all out, Joker's just continuing to play at such a high clip and they're shortchanging him. But I don't know if he'll be as frustrated as fans are, because I don't think he's wired like that. I think he's like, okay, what's today's problem? Let's go solve today's problem.
He's a lot cooler and calmer than I am. That's for sure. That's a fact. I get very frustrated, and I have to tell you, I kind of went back and forth with somebody on Twitter during the game. Surprise, surprise. Liv Mood's going back and forth with people on Twitter. Yeah, let's not act like we're shocked by that. But I went back and forth with them, and I said something about Jamal Murray defensively is just like an eyesore. There's just this lack of, like I said, lack of urgency. And somebody responded and said, well, has he ever really played great defense? And no, to that point, he really hasn't been like our strongest defensive player. But I will say in years past, I feel like there was more effort there. And it was very interesting to me because the person I was going back and forth on Twitter with said, well, Jamal's playing well. I'm like, so now we're okay with well? He's playing well? He's a flipping max contract player. Right. What do you mean he's playing well? I don't want him to play flipping well. I want him to play great. I want him to play good even. But what happens with this Nuggets team is you can very much tell when the energy has been sucked out of this Nuggets team and they are just depleted and they look exhausted, and they really do feed their skill peaks when they also have that energy and that momentum to match it. Some teams can just pull their skill out of nowhere and they've got it, but this Nuggets team really thrives off of momentum shifts and energy. And when Jamal just has this lack of urgency, and when Jamal doesn't really start producing offensively until the third quarter, you've now got this Nuggets team that's in this momentum rut, and they have to pull themselves out of it. And by them, I mean Jokic. It's like you're depending on one or two guys. And I have to give credit where it's due. I saw some really great moments between CB and Jokic in this game. I know that this wasn't CB's best offensive performance, but he brings energy. Peyton Watson is another one. And of course, these are younger guys, so you kind of expect them to just naturally have fresher legs and to be a little bit more motivated. But, forgive me for thinking that a max contract player should still be motivated, and I just don't see that from Jamal. And that's where I'm struggling. That the moment that person tweeted at me and said, he's actually playing well, I'm like, okay, well, you might be okay with well, but I certainly am not, because I just know. I think I looked something up, BK, and it said in the 2022-2023 season, when Jamal Murray scored 25 points or more, the Nuggets record was 16-2. And he's not the only guy out there, but he is that important to this team. He really is. He's an X factor in so many ways. And so that's where it gets tough for me, because when you don't, again, I'm not cool with 18 points. I'm just not. Forgive me. And not even from MPJ either. I'd like to see more from him as well, especially as we very slowly bring Aaron Gordon back into the mix since he's been out for an extended period of time. But 18 points is just not going to do it. And to me, this was such a winnable game. It's such a winnable game against a team that, when you're looking at these two teams on paper, it shouldn't even be close. And now twice this season, we have lost to a Clippers team that I think a lot of people laughed at before the season even started. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration, and I'm glad that Nikola Jokic can keep cool, calm, and collected, but I certainly can't. It's pretty much impossible for me at this point, it feels like.
Yeah, now the best part of the NBA until you get to obviously the playoffs is, and I guess if you screw around too much, then you find yourself in single elimination play-in situations. And when you're a team that's supposed to be better than that, it can obviously be really frustrating. Down the stretch, or tense, I guess, is a better way to look at it. But the cool thing about the NBA is you can bounce back and you get tested all the time. Like, you can fail a test, but you get to take a redo. And the Grizzlies is the extreme example, where you're going to play the same team in the same city 2 days apart. That's not normally what you're going to see throughout the year. You get it once, maybe twice, but you now get a chance against a team that's not only playing better, but is better than you this year on national TV Tuesday night. TNT, Shaq, Chuck, Kenny, EJ, they will be, they're always on the Tuesday games this time of year because of NFL Thursday Night Football. And then they obviously jump to Thursdays in January or thereabouts. And so you will get a chance to get a little more out of Aaron Gordon, you would think, just at comfort level, and see if Jamal raises his play in a big game. But your stat about 16-2 when Jamal has 25, he really should average 25. If you're paying a guy that kind of money, he should average between 23 and 25, not between 18 and 20. And so
the fact that his line, I think at some point, BK, his line, as it pertains to betting, you may be able to bet Jamal under 20 points. His line could be sitting at 19.5, 18.5. We shouldn't even be in that position at all.
It should be
that
23
is
and a half
crazy to
higher.
me.
If guys like Tatum and Joker are 27, 28.5, your second best player should be, who can score the way he can, should be that high. And it's not consistently. So Williams says Jamal is not the problem. I saw a couple other comments. Cedric Exquisite with 3 X's want to know why after 4 days off they always lose. I don't have the data to back that up, but
I think it's because of their momentum. They feed off of momentum, which is such a great thing, but that can't be the only thing we're feeding off of at this point. It just can't be. You know what I mean? Like, that's the momentum's either coming from a winning streak and no rest, or the return of a solid player, or Jokic being on fire and having a 40-something point triple-double. I mean, it can't always be that. Sometimes you just got to win tough games because you're good enough. That's it. There can't be these extra factors that we have to depend on in order to beat teams. This should have been an easy win for the Nuggets, and it wasn't.
Well, and I think when you look at the way, say, the Clippers roster is constructed, we know what James Harden is and what he isn't, and he's certainly much more inclusive than he was when he was just the best scorer in the league. But he still gets you 39 tonight to go with 11 assists and 9 boards. And then Norman Powell clearly is on the cusp of kind of all-star, conversation. What's funny is, I'll continue to say this until it quits being relevant, but and I say quits being relevant, either he'll make an all-star team or he won't. But if Jamal Murray plays like this throughout the duration of this contract, where some nights he'll get you 25 or 30, but most nights he's going to get you between 16 and 20. And as we've seen a couple people say, Jamal's not the problem, but others said he's not playing up to his contract. I just think that he will fall from the list of best player to never make an all-star team and will be passed by somebody like perhaps a Norman Powell. You don't want to just have short-term memory on stuff like that or recency bias. But that's all the Clippers have. Terrence Mann getting 50, that's not a good team. I get that they're in the playoff mix and James Harden's good enough if you bring it every night and what you're getting from Norman Powell that you can win games because effort still matters.
Of course, yeah.
And I understand that we're close to it. You get AG back now. There's no reason that Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, and Christian Brown, with whatever combination of a ninth big man type person is, whoever that is, if that's on a night where Hunter Tyson is that ninth guy, some nights it'll be Zeke, some nights it'll be DJ, but call them all the same person. So whatever you need from that ninth player, when everyone's healthy, this team is as good 1 to 8 as just about any team in the league, especially when that one is the best player on the planet. I get that. Similar to Tim Duncan, was it Tim? I was hearing them talk about, I was listening to maybe Bill Simmons' podcast talk about how Duncan, it can't be right. Somebody didn't ever have another All-NBA. Oh, Olajuwon. Olajuwon won those championships, never had another All-NBA player. I get Michael Jordan was on sabbatical for a year and a half of that, and obviously wasn't going to make enough hay in that second season when they went back-to-back. But they went heads up against Shaq and Penny. I get they were young, but those are Hall of Famers and a good team. The point is, most perennial champions have more than one All-NBA kind of player. And we know that Jamal has that talent. Russell Westbrook has been that, but he's not that anymore, and it's not even fair to put that on him. And I guess I forgot Russ. So there's your 8 guys, and then your 9th is whoever the biggest, because I kind of had CB in there. But this team, and we'll see it, we can watch the Warriors who are in that mix. We've watched the Thunder after SGA and Chet Holmgren.
The Warrior game.
Jalen Williams is a good player, but Jalen Williams is essentially kind of what Michael Porter is or Aaron Gordon to a team where he can get you 20-something. But as I see your frustration, is you just read it all over your face.
Well, no, I'm to be honest, you mentioned the Warriors game, and now I'm like, full transparency, BK, I'm super pleased I'm not going to be in town for that one because it scares me and I don't want to show it on my face. I want to have good energy, positivity. All right, they've got it. They can do it. And I'm just not feeling that way at this moment. You know what I mean? So
you go to a Warriors watch party in the Bay Area. Just go to any bar.
I really actually could, but
I stuff.
I fear that everybody around me is going to be on the other side of me. And if I don't get my way, I'm going to be feeling very, sore loser-ish, to be honest. Not sure I'd be a good sport about that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, and although I'll say this, you're going to get the game to start at 7 West Coast time, so
there is a plus there.
Yeah.
A lot of the comments tonight are really strongly about Coach Malone. There has been conversation since the season started with an 0-2 start. Let me start by asking you this. Should the Nuggets have signed Jamal to a max contract in the offseason?
Yes, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's easy to say they shouldn't have, and I understand all the reasons
Hindsight's
why.
2020, of course. Yes.
But I'm just saying in general, nothing's changed from what we thought in the summer. He's just kind of showing us what we expected coming off the Olympics, banged up in the playoffs, and not having the sense of urgency. He's kind of the opposite of Russell Westbrook. Right? Russell Westbrook treats every game like it's the 7th game of a playoff series.
Imagine that.
And admittedly, that's hard to do. But when you have 2 guys that are similar in terms of their ceiling, although Russ is, I guess, higher. I mean, he was a league MVP, a 9-time All-Star, and going to be a Hall of Famer. I think that you see the stark contrast on a nightly basis, like Reggie Jackson coming in, or even the championship bench that you had with, I guess, Bruce Brown as Jamal's backup. And that was kind of what you were getting there. And then they added Reggie late. There's not a difference in terms of style. You can see, okay, Jamal is clearly better than these guys. With Russ, you can tell, he's just older, but he still has not let up.
But he shows up. He shows up.
And so I think that that's the frustration is like, it's Jamal's just demeanor is magnified because of the presence of Russell Westbrook. But I think I'll continue to go back to, it's clear why Joker wanted him, is less about what he's doing in terms of his production and more about his effort, his energy, and his personality. That I give Joker and their front office credit. But going back to, should Jamal have been maxed out, you just didn't have another option because you missed the chance to trade him. Apparently, you could have traded him for Luka back in the day. That came out pretty recently. That on draft night,
Don't tell me that.
Gary Harris.
I will throw this microphone through
this story
the wall.
came out last week, and we haven't had a chance, you and I, to talk about it. We can get into it more on off court if you want to tomorrow, and I'll see if I can find out the details. But I think Mike Singer is who brought it up, actually, who obviously has that new Joker book out. But that they were very close. They had the framework of a deal with Sacramento, which would have been ahead of Atlanta or Dallas. They were reluctant to put Jamal Murray in the deal. So it had Gary Harris, it had, a couple other people and a couple of high draft picks. And Sacramento was ready to do it, but they wanted Jamal Murray, and the Nugs wouldn't pull the trigger, else Luka would have been here with Joker for a decade. But
I have tears forming in my eyeballs.
That was 6 years ago, or, whenever Joker and Luka and Trae Young came into the league. But
also,
what I'm saying is, your other option with Jamal, no one was trading for him because no one else was going to max him out.
Right.
So, and he and Joker do run a great two-man game when it's clicking, as good as anybody in the league. We just haven't seen it much this year.
It's not clicking. It's not clicking. Right now, it is not clicking. And I don't know, I don't want to make the assumption that maybe, on my solo episode on Friday, BK, I finally got a chance, a platform, if you will, to discuss Jamal Murray's post-game presser following the ass whooping by the New York Knicks. And to be quite frank with you, BK, I haven't even talked with you about this because I didn't want to ruin your Thanksgiving. But that post-game presser pissed me off. It pissed me off. It is one thing, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you just kind of get like, I feel like I learned this as a child, that like, if you're not going to do your best, like at least bring something to the table, right? If it's not going to be a good game or leadership, maybe it's, I don't know, accountability. Maybe it's not snitching on your teammates. Like it just, his post game was weird. It was very weirdo of him. It was there was a lack of leadership and there's a lack of accountability all around with his post game presser. So it very much frustrated me.
Yeah. I did post game that night, and the frustration was understandable, not just by you, but any Nuggets fan, where he's like, look, if I play a little better, we still lose by 30. And it's like, well, that's not really the point. I mean, it isn't. But why would you say it like that?
Right. What?
Here's the thing. Jamal, who is as perplexing as any athlete I've ever covered, and I've gotten more short answers from him than any athlete I've ever covered.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a good question. Recently, I've gotten some better answers, but I wasn't at that game. I had already, to try to beat the snowstorm, made it to the mountains and was doing the game, or doing post game from the mountains. And watching it in real time, you could sense obviously Michael Malone's frustration, and then with Jamal's, because there has been times where after losses, Jamal, when he decides to come in, and we can cite losses to Phoenix, losses to Minnesota last year, where he just bails, and this year against Oklahoma City in the opener, he's nowhere to be found. And for your second highest paid player to not always show up, it's extremely frustrating. But there's been times where his ownership of a bad game, or when he hasn't played well, but he's made a big shot, which we did see in the playoffs, he'll admit, and I get that sometimes coming on wings, like, I've got to be better. I got to make more shots. But for him to say what he did in the manner he did, it certainly didn't match Michael Malone's energy. And I understand the way coach is wired, but I think the criticisms of Malone aren't necessarily fair, because I get that it's the coach's job to find ways to dig out the best of every player. And when the effort's not there, that you say, oh, that's on the coach. But this is a championship caliber kind of roster with the best player on the planet. And if you need the coach to pump you up, then you've got so many other concerns beyond just the effort.
Well, and and that's just it. I also was chatting with somebody on Twitter. I think it was after the Utah game, and they were like, I had put out there that I felt like right now I prefer the combination of Russ and Jokic over Jamal and Jokic. And of course, the stat nerds are like, well, the plus minus and the blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, first of all, if all you care about is statistics when you watch basketball, then like maybe I'm not the right podcast for you. Because to be honest with you, I'm also thinking about the remainder of the season, which is a very long one. And I would much rather have somebody that is giving full effort for 4 quarters every single game. I mean, Russ in under 10 minutes had 25 points against the Knicks while they were just getting throttled. And to me, I think that you can work with that a whole lot more. And I actually think that helps Nikola Jokic. I don't think Nikola Jokic really minds being the best basketball player in the world right now. I don't think he really minds having triple doubles every night. But what he wants is to have his energy matched. And if it's not going to be with statistics or plus minuses where the stat nerds can go crazy, it at least needs to be with energy and with effort and with a little bit of leadership. And we're just not getting that. To be honest, right now, MPJ and Jamal to me both look a little just Now, MPJ to me offensively, I think he's more timely with when he picks up his offense. He has a little bit more, to me, he's got moments that have more capability of switching the momentum. I feel that way when I sit and watch. And let me also say, you guys, I haven't forgotten who Jamal is. The reason I'm so pissed the F off is because I know who he can be, and he's not that. So it's not that I'm this giant Jamal hater and I'm like, oh my God, he's horrible, he's washed, he's this. No, he's just not trying as hard as I think he could be, and therefore he's not producing the way that he should be. It's that simple. I know who he can be. We've seen it. I am one of his largest fans when he is doing his job. But again, I'm just not cool with mediocre. And right now, I feel like Jamal Murray is playing slightly above mediocre basketball. That's how I feel.
And no, and we also often hear in sports that players, especially star players, are paid for past performance, which is not necessarily the best way to do business.
At all.
I hate the way the Warriors handled some of their contracts, but with what Steph and Draymond are still giving you, clearly that's not necessarily the case. Or even Clay, I get that between the injuries and everything else. I don't think that's the case here, though. Like, yes, Jamal has played really well in the playoffs, certainly in the run to the finals and into the championship. But he's still got plenty in the tank physically. And so there's just, by paying him, the expectation is, okay, he's going to meet that standard that they have set for him. Because I don't know what standard he has set for himself. But when you hear Michael Malone say he wants to see Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., but specifically Jamal Murray in the All-Star game, several All-Star games, in order to do that, you have to come out and play like Norman Powell does every night. Certainly the way Russell Westbrook does, but or at least how Norman Powell plays against the Nuggets. And you're just not getting it consistently from Jamal. And that's maddening because you know that he has the ability to every night go out and get you 30 pretty easily without taking crazy, crazy shots.
BK, I have to give myself, I'm going to toot my horn just a smidge here because I just remembered a clip that it's on my Instagram. I will resurface it. I will repost it on Twitter. If you guys are on Twitter, I will repost it on my Instagram story tonight so that I can prove to you that this was posted forever ago when I said with my chest that the only 2 starters, this was after we lost KCP, so he was not a part of the conversation. I said the only 2 starters to me that should be safe in the offseason were Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic, and people were at my throat. At my throat. Because why? Well, Jamal, buzzer beater, did you forget what they did in 2023? No, I didn't forget what they did. But I also am not just thinking about 2023 and 2020. I'm thinking about what have you done for me lately? And where are you going to take us in not only this season, but the next season? I said that. I got ripped apart for it. But I stand by it. Obviously, we had a long little period there where we didn't have Aaron Gordon, but we know the impact that Aaron Gordon has on this team. Even just gradually getting him back in the mix, we can see the type of energy that he brings, the competitive nature that he brings. We know how physical his game is, and that's something that to be honest, both sides of the ball, both sides of the floor, we're missing from this Nuggets team is that physicality and that aggression, and that's what Gordon brings. So we know what he brings. We know what Jokic brings. I said it in the offseason that to me, those are the only two starters that should be considered safe. And I stand by it. I'm actually doubling down on it right here on this post-game live. So,
well,
there's
I
that.
guess the question is, and I don't know if he's a starter forever, but does Christian Brown fall into that category for you now, knowing what you
Yes.
get? And
At the time, he wasn't a starter. So, but
Yeah, I get it.
now,
I get
yes,
it.
there is immense upside with CB. I love his energy. I love his hustle. I think he's doing exactly what he needs to do for this team. So he is safe. But then he wasn't even in the mix as a starter. You know, it was kind of whatever. Yes, he's considered safe to me, 100%.
You know, we're going to continue to do this to ourselves, and I say ourselves, but you being a much bigger Nuggets fan than I am, and where it can ruin your night and ruin your next day. And so many, you know, of our great viewers that are chiming in on the chat. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but you know that are watching us live and care in November, and I guess you know today December as much as they do in April. The riding this roller coaster, the frustration isn't going to be like you can stomach some of these losses because of who you lost to, the manner and how you like. The Knicks loss really hurts because at home and you get run out of your own gym.
Woo! That was tough.
That one will sting longer. This one at the Clippers, I get that it's a game they could have won. It's that because, and I'm gonna make this point on every post game show we do, because the West is so jam packed. You just need more wins, and November, December, January games are going to matter in April and May.
Yep, absolutely.
I get that everyone is going to drop games they're not supposed to and all that, but you want to be in the best position possible. And look, they're not that far behind even Oklahoma City. They're only 3.5 games back. So if they go on a nice little win streak and Oklahoma City stumbles, they could all of a sudden find themselves at the top of the table. But right now, as it stands, and they're sitting in, or I guess they're probably 4.5 games back now, or at least 4 games back, because I was looking at like my pregame standings. Here's my postgame standings. They are now 4 full games back. So not insurmountable, but you've got to pick up wins where you can. Like if they go to, not only if they win Tuesday, but then go to Cleveland Thursday to start their road trip against the best team in the East at 18-3, that might change some of these national conversations or local conversations for that matter, but they still have to do it. And so yeah. I'm throwing out hypotheticals, but the reality is every game they lose, you have to look at the standings, because when it comes up in April and they're jockeying for position, you're going to say, well, they should have dropped that game to the Pelicans in November, or that
they all matter
Sunday game to the Grizzlies with no Ja, you know. So I think that'll be that'll be why we continue to ride this wave, is because not that anything's derailed by tonight's loss. It's that in April, it's going to matter, because you may end up in the damn play-in tournament if you let this happen too much.
Yeah, I think, you know, you bring up an excellent point that the losses that are deserving, and they're all deserving, when you don't play 4 quarters of basketball, when you get outplayed, when you're not making your 3-pointers, when you're not playing defense, all the losses are deserved. But when they're extremely winnable games that the Nuggets fall short in, those are the ones that are hard to stomach. A blowout against the Knicks, that Knicks team is stacked, you know, and they just showed up better and they were more prepared. And so I do think, you know, this comment right here, Calvin Booth put the Nuggets in financial hell. And you know what? I'm here to tell you right now, because of the way that we paid Jamal, and of course, hindsight's 2020, right? Now we can sit and look at it and go, oof, was that a great idea? But like you said, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation. If you lose him, who do you replace him with? I will tell you, I'm not sure it was ever going to be possible, but I would have loved to have. I've always said Donovan Mitchell as a Nugget would be my favorite thing in the world. Obviously, that's neither here nor there. And of course, there's so many different layers to the back end of the business side of the NBA. But I'll tell you what, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but the year after that, this Nuggets team is going to have to start playing chess because of the way that they paid Jamal Murray. And we could lose people that we're not prepared to lose. And that's going to be the financial hell that I think Calvin Booth may have put this Nuggets team in. It's going to be unfortunate.
And we can dig into this more tomorrow over time, but
yes, we will.
Is the structure of the salary cap aprons and all of that. And because you're paying Joker the most possible money. And you paid MPJ at the time a really big deal. You just gave AG a nice deal, not a huge, huge deal, but it's hard to pay everybody. And you like these young players, but as they continue to ascend, you're not going to be able to pay all of them. And so that means the guys that you are paying, as you're continuing to work young players in along the way to mix in with your vets, you've got to figure out that right mix. But CB may be the first one that comes up where there is a team that's going to pay him
my God.
a lot
I
more.
even think Peyton Watson. I think Peyton Watson's another one that is showing a lot of upside. And of course, I actually tweeted during this game, I said, I do not love having Aaron Gordon injured, but I do think the plus of that, if you're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel with Aaron Gordon's injury, is we got to see Peyton Watson actually play, and we got to see what he can actually bring to the table. And it was pretty optimistic, in my opinion. It was very positive. And the problem is, because of the contract we gave Jamal, and the better that CB and Peyton Watson play, teams are going to want them. They're going to be hot on the market. They are. And oh God, I just can't do this, BK. We've already lost Bruce Brown. I dealt with that. I got over it. Then we lost KCP. I'm still dealing with that. I'm trying to get over it. It is going to be tough to try to, if Jamal Murray doesn't start averaging at least, I'll give him 22. I'm not even going to say 25. Baby steps here. If he doesn't start averaging 22 points per game, this Nuggets team is not a contending team. Point blank, period.
That's I don't think that's asking too much. Daniel Miller asked if Malone's on the hottest seat in basketball. He's just not. When you look at JB Bickerstaff in Detroit, I think JJ Redick in LA, you're going to live on a hot seat, and you're only going to go as far as LeBron wants you to go. Yes, they had a podcast. I assume the podcast on hiatus, although it'd be a more fascinating podcast with them working together now. I think that Mike Budenholzer's probably on the hot seat, and Doc Rivers. They're, a game above 500, but when you've got Dame Lillard, you got Hall of Fame, you got two Hall of Famers, and you got Chris Middleton, and you got Brooke Lopez, among others. You should be better in the East than the Bucks are, and so I think that there are much hotter seats than Michael Malone's. He won a championship just 2 seasons ago. If they keep dropping games against bad teams and their record, drops them out of playoff contention, then that's going to be a different conversation in January, February. But I just don't think his seat's even that warm yet, let alone hot.
To be honest, this comment right here, Jokic might demand a trade if it gets bad. I think Jokic will just retire if it gets bad enough. I don't think he'll trade.
He's like, I want to go play in Dallas with Luka or go play in New York.
I don't think a trade will even be on his radar. It'll just be, I got the ring, I got the MVP, I got a new baby boy. I'll go back to my country, and we'll chill, and we'll ride horses, and we'll enjoy our life. Honestly,
apparently he's never even ridden on a horse until recently.
Who?
Joker. I think he's been in those carriages, but he's never been on a horse.
That is actually so hilarious and so surprising, because
I mean,
that's all we talk about.
The opposite of the size of a jockey. So there's that.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how many.
When you can get on a horse without having to step into the, is it a stirrup or whatever, the foot holder?
Yeah.
Then he didn't even need that. So.
Well, BK, we will have an episode of Off Court tomorrow, following our episode of Off Field tomorrow. So we can kind of break down things a little bit more. What does the future of this Nuggets team look like? Is Calvin Booth to blame? Is Coach Malone to blame? We can get into the nitty-gritties of all of that. We will be live tomorrow, 12:30-ish p.m. Mountain Time, talking all things Denver Nuggets a little bit further, a little bit more in detail. And yeah, we'll break it all down. I won't be in town for the Warriors game, but I believe you will be. So you'll be delivering some coverage and he'll be at the game. He'll be getting you guys all things content for that one. And that's obviously going to be a really good one. Believe it or not, Nuggets don't have a ton of home games in the month of December. Well, at least the first couple of weeks of December.
Well, yeah, we're missing that kind of stretch where the replacement games after the NBA Cup next round get set. That's why they're that weird gap. But they still have to go on the road here starting Thursday for, I believe, 3 or 4 before they drop back home. We think we'll be home, or maybe 1 home, 1 road, and then some more road games after that. So yeah, a lot of trips on the road in December, including on Christmas Day, where because you're not the defending champs, you don't get the host. So they're going to Phoenix to cap off the 5-game NBA quintuple header that will, of course, be overshadowed by the 2 NFL games. But at least they'll be done by the time the Nuggets and Suns tip it off in the desert. So that'll be a good way to end your Christmas night.
Absolutely. Yep. And we'll keep you guys covered, all things, no matter how late these games run, for the most part, unless we've got scheduling conflicts and things are crazy, we will keep you covered either from Ball Arena, from the studio, or from our home studios. Most of the time, I think if the Nuggets are on the road, we'll be from home, but we'll still be delivering you guys.
We'll start going to games too. It's in the plans. It's just not,
So we'll keep you guys covered on all things Denver Nuggets all season long. It's going to be a long season. I do think all of the comments we've read tonight so far have expressed worry and concern. I think you are entitled to that. I'm right there with you. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of concern. But of course, this is a very, very long season. You just have to think and remember, the NFL season is much, much shorter. And at one point, we thought the Saints could potentially win the Super Bowl. And look at us now. A lot can happen, okay, over the course of a few weeks to a month to a few months. And this is a very, very long season. So we will break down
the Super Bowl, but I get your point.
Yeah. And we were devastated about the Broncos' start to their season, and they found a way to turn it around. Now we're talking playoffs for this team. It's crazy. So it's a long season. Let's not stress and worry too much to the point that we are like losing our minds. I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to myself, everybody. So just know that I am trying my best right alongside you. But we will be live tomorrow, 11 a.m. for all things Broncos, and we will all three be at the Broncos game tomorrow night. I won't be with the fellas as close, but we're going to figure out ways to deliver you guys content for that one. And then, of course, we'll be breaking down all things basketball, BK and myself in the studio, 12 to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time-ish. Just give Guerrilla Sports a follow on all things socials, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere, and you'll be able to get notifications. Turn those notifications on. You'll be able to get notifications when we go live, just in case we're not completely on time. But thank you guys so much for being here. BK, thank you for being here. And we'll be breaking things down again tomorrow. So we will see you guys. Any final thoughts, BK, from you?
No. Be cool to see the Nuggets bounce back Tuesday. And maybe coming home, they'll get a better effort than last time they were home against the Knicks. My dog Stella came in for the very end of the show.
Beautiful baby. There you go. What a great way to end. Hello. You said Stella?
Stella.
Hello, Stella. You're beautiful. Yes, you guys, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for being here. I know it's late, so everybody get to bed. Go Nuggets. I know it's tough, but we'll be back tomorrow to break things down a little bit more, and hopefully the Nuggets can get back on track. So thanks for being here. I'm Liv Moods. That's BK, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.